Hello, we are AUBIE1, and this is our robot in 24 hours. It was Curious George, and today we're going to overview all the mechanisms, kind of the thought process we had when going through them all, and just show off the robot. Okay, so in over-under, there's a few things we wanted to consider when designing a drivetrain. First, we wanted to decide between xDrive and tank drive. Specifically, those were the two options we thought were feasible in 24 hours. xDrive is nice because you could pull up to this corner and activate a climb over here. But we thought that defense was going to be super important for the human player station in particular. And so we wanted to go with the tank drive, and we even did traction wheels here to help with side-to-side pushing. Now we did do 3.25-inch wheels. We found that this ended up causing an issue when we wanted to clear the barrier here. We have sleds, and they do work. You see here. But the issue is that it actually gets stuck on this gear, and so it doesn't clear as well as it could. If you just elevated these gears, it would work. A really unique feature about our drive, you may notice here there's some empty space, and that is because this drive can actually straddle the low barrier around here. We thought that would be really helpful when going for a climb. We did originally intend to go for a high climb, and so we thought that that would really help with that. And so if I just demonstrate over here, basically you just kind of go around the side of the intake, and then you would be able to climb over here. Ended up not working out our climb, but the actual ability to straddle is really nice, and we do think it could benefit teams that have a successful climb.
Okay, so for the intake design, we decided to go with a side roller design. Right, we have both of the motors being 5.5 watt motors in order to save on our wattage capacity. Also, them being internally run at 200 RPM, we have a 3-to-1 gear ratio for speed at the front, where the back is just running at that 200 RPM. And so this 600 RPM allows us to get a rough estimation so that the velocity at the surface is about the same as the velocity of the drivetrain, allowing for tri-balls to go inside the robot at about the same speed as the drivetrain. And so, using this 3-to-1 gear ratio, you can tell that this flex wheel is going a lot faster than this one here. And so, they also have them starting like these at the beginning, right? And so when they go down, right, it comes out like that, and they do it for both so that we can start the size. And also at this pivot, it has metal flexing, right? And so that metal flexing allows for better compression so that when the tri-ball sucks it in, right, it compresses and it's able to go inside the robot. The bad problem, or the main problem with this design is that if you don't come at it at basically perfectly straight in relative to the tri-ball, it tends to make the tri-ball roll away. And so one way to fix that is to have the flex wheels just kind of go in and out this way so that you can close in on the tri-balls in order to get, that more maneuverable tolerance. And besides that, these flex wheels are 30A 4-inch, and they work relatively well for the tri-ball.
So while designing an outtake mechanism, something that could launch it across the field, we came across two things as our main ideas, and that was a catapult and a flywheel. And why we think a flywheel would be really useful for this year's game, in 24 hours, that's just not something that's going to pan out. And so, despite our best efforts, the 12 watts of friction that we had managed to build up with our flywheel, we decided not to go with a flywheel for the RI 24 hours. Of course, with time, a flywheel could be very useful, but instead we went with a catapult because it's a lot more of a simple mechanism. This catapult is 36 to 84 direct drive with 7 teeth for every 18 on the slip gear. The way it's banded makes sure to, as it rotates along, it keeps constant pressure on the rubber bands so that as it's flying up, there's no lurches. which with the time frame that it launches in, that's fine. And on top of that, the slight bend that we put into it gives the catapult good grip of the tri-balls, because the angles they have on them make it to where all you really need is a slight bend or just a nook for it to grab onto. The issues we kind of have with this catapult is it is a very fast catapult. Its cycle time is about 0.4 seconds, and that's on half speed, which leads to a bit of issue stopping it because we're not using conventional stopping methods. Normally you would use something like a limit switch, but due to some bad experiences with those at Worlds, we decided to try something else for the RI 24 hours, and we're actually using a distance sensor that this tape gets in the way of, and that's how it stops it. It doesn't always do it perfectly, and so sometimes it'll just keep shooting. Another issue is the rubber bands are pulling the gears together, but it's fine because we have zip ties to pull it back apart. Overall, this catapult's pretty good, and I think it'll be pretty useful for this year going forwards.
So the climbing mechanism was more difficult than we originally imagined. So our first idea was similar to this robot here, and it had a single flywheel, and it would drive over to the bar, and it would then climb up the bar with a little latch on the other side. In our testing, we were not able to get this mechanism successful because it just did not have the force to get up the bar. It would be able to climb with our slight pushing and stay, but it just wouldn't get up the bar. So that moved us to a 2 flywheel system. So now it would drive over to the bar, they'd clamp onto it, and it would, using both flex wheels, drive up. A big issue that we had with this design though is as it climbs, it would slowly rotate around the bar and tip, eventually causing it to fall. We believe we could solve these things, and we moved integration onto the larger robot, but once we put it on the larger robot, it did not have the force to sustain itself, it tipped, and it just overall failed as a mechanism. That then led us to the mechanism we have on the RI-24 robot. So on the RI-24 robot, we have a single bar, and originally it had one single hook. So it would drive over to the bar, grab on, and lift itself up. The issue is, once it reached a certain point, without the second bar, it would just slide and the robot would tip, falling to the ground. That led to the addition of a second bar, and now it lifts itself up and it's able to hold it at G level. One current issue with this iteration of the robot though is it cannot keep itself on the bar once the program has stopped like it would at the end of a match.
And that brings us to the end of our robot in 24 hours. I hope you guys like the robot. If you have any questions about it, please let us know in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Also, maybe subscribe to the channel. We're trying to post more content this year, so please stay tuned and keep an eye out. Thanks for watching.